Hey, you're listening to the Sales Hunter podcast. My name's Mark Hunter. We got another great episode. We're going to talk about why is selling so hard if it's only a conversation. With me today, Lou Diamond. He is a conversation expert. And let me tell you something. He's going to break it down and show you how we overcomplicate things. So what are we waiting for? Let's start the show right now.
You're listening to the Sales Hunter podcast with Mark Hunter, where the focus is to help you as a sales leader sell with confidence and integrity. And now here's your host.
Well, this is a conversation today, just like what sales is. And that's why Lou Diamond is going to be joining us here in just a second. But before we do that, got to remind you about Sales Logic Live. You know, the podcast I host with Meredith Elliott Powell every Saturday. Hey, we're doing our first live event. It's in Dallas, Texas. You can join us here or you can join us online. But we're going to be rolling out the Sales Logic system. New selling process that I think is going to absolutely upend how you've been selling, and especially right now for 2023. We'll put the link in the show notes and all things, but we hope to see you either in person or online. And with that, Lou, welcome. How you doing?
Mark, we made it happen.
We actually, if people only knew what happened before we go live with almost live with a show. Yes.
There's a lot of effort, a lot of technology, a lot of hula hoops and bumps and things. But you know what? I'm excited to be here, and I'm honored to be here on the Sales Hunter podcast.
Yeah, because we even had to move you from Florida to New York to make this episode happen.
Literally, moving trucks were involved, airlifting, high-level equipment adjustments. This is the stuff that happens in the podcasting world.
Yeah, I mean, the load in for this show, it was a 2-day load in. Just to get everything placed. But okay, enough about the stupid stuff. Let's talk about conversation. But you know, right there, that's a great example because you have a magical way of communicating and showing and helping people. What is it? Why do salespeople get why can't salespeople keep it simple and just have a conversation?
I think the question actually comes from a lack of focus. And what I mean by that is if you are a salesperson in an organization or you're the salesperson for your own organization, like you're your own solopreneur or whatever it might be, there's a lot of distractions around what we think is important and the world that we're leading in. Let me just give two different sides of it. If we're talking about someone that works for a large company, at large organizations, there's a lot of different activities going on, new products, new releases, priorities that other groups, marketing, leadership, operations, customer service, customer success are all surrounding and helping the sales organization. And if you go to that all the way to the other extreme to a solopreneur, you yourself are running your own business. Maybe you're raising funds and you're pitching to investors. Maybe you're dealing with your own operating expenses or getting, equipment and podcasts moved from one location to another. You have a lot of distractions that are going on. And what ends up happening is that all those distractions kind of jump in and lose the main focus of where you're going to connect. You're going to start talking about all the great things going on in your company. You're going to start talking about all the things that you've done well. And what we've all learned, Mark, and many guests that have been on this program have shared with you, is that nobody cares. What people do care about is making a connection with the person they're talking with. And where does every connection begin? It begins with a great conversation. So all those distractions and lack of focus kind of gets us out of the core of what we're really trying to do when we're trying to sell. And that is to have a conversation to understand how we can help the person we're trying to serve. That's really it. And if we can get all that noise and clutter out of the way and keep it as simple as understanding not what you have to say or what you have to talk about, or maybe even some of the things you need to do around the sales process, but really just how you need to be in the conversation, then you're going to make that connection and then things will start to gel.
Okay, now I'm going to unpack this here for a bit because while you were talking to me, you were pulling me in, but at the same time, I'm racing through my mind everything else I got to get done today.
Yeah.
And I have a feeling as I'm talking to you right now, you're probably thinking the same thing. Hey, I want to hurry up and get this podcast done so I can get on with X, Y, and Z. But it's that ability to have that conversation to pull people in. How do we do that though? How do we, because again, a good conversation has you blocking out everything outside.
I totally agree. And I have a tactic that you can use. It's a tip that I use, which is perfect for the medium in which we're utilizing this right now, because this is something that I do before every conversation, before every podcast interview, before every sales pitch, before every keynote presentation I give. I do this activity. I call it Connect Your Voice, V.O.I.C.E. And I'll break it down for you, Mark. V, I visualize how I think the conversation needs to go, or where I would love it to go. In this particular case, I am providing you and your listeners with information and education. I'm going to answer your questions as best as I can and look charming while doing it. And you obviously have the same opus moderandum on your side. You're asking the questions so you can give great content, and you've got an agenda to make sure that we're done in the 24 minutes that you want us to be done on this particular episode. So you're visualizing that. And we do this when we visualize a sales meeting. You visualize what we need to do, make the connection, understand what the issues are, and try and maybe get to the next step in the process. That's the visualization. The O in Connect Your Voice is you need to appreciate the opportunity that you're even having a conversation. Appreciate the moment that every conversation we have in our lives is a gift. And in the moment, if you're there, if you show the sense that you're genuinely appreciative that someone's giving their time, whether you as the podcast host, me as the guest, me as a potential buyer, you as a seller, in that environment, if we are appreciative of just the opportunity to try and see if there's a connection and take an understanding and appreciation of that opportunity, you'll set the stage for an environment of appreciation and gratitude, which is where most transactions get done. I'll be simple on the other three here. The I is the toughest one. The I is the identity you need to be in that conversation. Now, here we have clear-cut roles. You're the question asker. I'm the answer here and the guest. And a lot of times in sales, we have that. But sometimes, as we know, we're not only the salesperson trying to communicate and understand and ask a lot of questions. A lot of times we have to provide answers. A lot of times we may have to be the go-between with the ones that know the real information. Maybe we have to be the negotiator. There's lots of roles that we have to play in a conversation. So in every conversation, what identity do I need to take on? And C and E I will combine together for you here. And that is, you need to bring charisma and energy. Charisma, Mark, that's who you are. What is the unique super thing about you that's going to make you connect in that conversation? And E, to simplify this really simply, you need to elevate the energy when you're talking to someone, specifically through Zoom or whatever it might be, because Mark, no one wants to connect with a dud.
Oh, I had to write that down. I had to write that down. Visualize. The opportunity is the O. The I is identity, identify. C is the charisma. And the E, kind of the double E, elevate the energy.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking especially, this works not only in sales, but, if I'm an introvert, we'll say, and I don't know, I'll let you determine that. I'll let the audience determine that. This is a great roadmap to help an introvert going into a conversation.
So make it clear and this is important. Let's rewind this. I am more focused on helping people speak easy with every conversation they have. The end result, which might be a sale, the end result, which might be a marketing message, the end result, which might be what a leader needs to communicate to their company. That is just the result of what happens when you connect in the conversation. It's the conversation that's more important than anything else. It is the root, where connections are made. So a sale is one type of conversation. And you're right, you can carry over my Connect Your Voice warm-up before every conversation to get yourself in the right mindset on how you need to be so that you could connect, engage, and win every time you have one of those conversations. So yes, Mark, you are 100% right. This can be carried over into all of your conversations, not just your sales ones.
I'm going to connect the dots here because something I always talk about, it's not so much what you sell, it's the outcome you create because of what you sell.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what this is here. You've laid out the template for a conversation. The conversation is not what you're selling, but the conversation sets up the ability for you to create that outcome, to have that sale.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow.
I think it's important to remember that a lot of the type of selling that I have done, and I know you have done as well, is more of a consultative sale. This is not a commoditized product like, here's a water bottle, this has got great value. You need it. Here you go. I'm not going to establish a long-term relationship because you need this, or even the person that's selling you a stick of gum at the CVS or Walmart. The reality is that in relationship type sales, which are a longer process, maybe it's a bigger ticket item, or maybe more importantly, it's a longer term relationship where you are selling multiple things over many, many times. It is not the transactional nature that you need to connect with. It's the individual who you're having conversations with over and over again. And remember, some of those conversations are great ones. Some of them are uncomfortable. Some of them are even awkward and maybe even off-putting. But it's real important that in all of them, we can understand where we connect on those conversations and how we need to be in those moments. And connecting your voice ahead of every one of them is a great kind of a mindset that I love to, it's my trigger before I do it. Specifically that raising the energy. And I want to state this. I'm not saying you have to shout from the rooftops. We know a lot of other professional speakers, Mark, who are big, loud, powerful presence. And when they get on stage, they're almost scaring you off the stage in some cases. I'm not saying you need to be like that in raising the energy. What I do recognize, though, is that we do have to move it up a pulse, even if we're introverted and we're quiet, to make the connection. It takes energy. And in today's world, a lot of us are communicating virtually. And to penetrate through this little camera requires a little more energy than just the complacency of us sitting back and nodding or not giving forward the energy we need to try to make that connection when we're not in the same room.
Yeah, I want to let's talk about energy here for a bit, because I think, like you said, a lot of people think energy is just running around screaming, like a mad, remember, what's his name, who used to be CEO of Microsoft? Why can't I think of his name?
Steve Ballmer?
Steve Ballmer. There are countless videos on YouTube of Steve Ballmer running around on stage, yelling and screaming like a wild man, which he was. And people say, well, that's energy. But you don't have to do that to bring energy, because you can just bring energy with your tonality and your eye contact and various things. What are some things? What are some things you suggest?
I'm going to give you one of the big ones. Smile. Show these pearly whites and smile. Nothing starts a connection more than smiling. And by the way, if you're forgetting to smile, this is a line that my friend Drew Tarvin says all the time. If you're happy about it, tell your face. So to actually like smile and put those teeth back, because when you smile, you're exuding a positive energy right away. We're trying to bring out, even, by the way, lifting your cheekbones. Go look this up at all the muscles that are required. I don't know if you know this. The muscles that are required in the face to actually do a smile takes a lot of energy. There's a lot of things moving to get yourself there. But when you show that you're happy to be there, that appreciating the opportunity, that you're in the moment, that you can actually connect with somebody, it's such a wonderful thing. Be happy that you're there. And because most of us do like to connect with people we like. There is a likability factor that we are trying to achieve when we have conversations. I'm not saying we always want to be liked, but we're trying to like the people we're having a conversation with in that moment and appreciating them for how we can help them. Or maybe if our personalities are different and we're not the type of people that would hang out outside of work, at least we like how that person's trying to help us. And I think that starts off with a smile, eye contact, a firm handshake, good posturing, and elevating yourself. I say this: stand up when you're giving a presentation more often than not. As we're sitting right now, normally I'm going to sit at a standing desk because I love to get that up, like you are running around. You're also really tall. I don't think there's many chairs that can keep you in the headroom that you need to be able to. So I stated it's important, though. You need to elevate that energy.
I got to share a dark side of my life. Going back, I was about 24 years of age. I was struggling in sales. I got called into my boss's office for a meeting. I seriously thought I was going to be fired. Net, my boss told me that whenever I ate breakfast in the morning, and he asked me, do you eat breakfast in the morning? I said, yeah, I do. He says, I want you to put a mirror in front of your face. I want you to be eating your breakfast in front of a mirror. Because he said, you have the most dour face I have ever met. Now,
that's pretty awesome. By the way, I give him credit for being honest and having that conversation with you.
Hey, the guy literally became a huge mentor of mine. Yeah. But I give him credit because I'm 24 years of age. I don't even know what the word dour means. Okay, right? I mean, you're rolling on the floor laughing right now. But I'll tell you what, it was a wake-up call for me because his comment was, you're not going to connect with your customers because,
I'll say this, Mark, every time I've met you, and I've had several instances to meet you in person, you're always smiling.
well,
Your energy is present, and it uplifts the room.
and I credit
yeah,
Bob Stone was the gentleman's name. I credit Bob Stone with that.
Bob Stoneface Stone. I
Bob
guess
Stone Face Stone. I mean, seriously. I mean, I'm sitting in his office, and I'm thinking I'm getting fired. And he goes through this long thing, and he says, "Do you eat breakfast in the morning?" And he even went to the point of asking me what I ate for breakfast in the morning.
He got you
I mean,
distracted. Certainly.
yeah, you talk about blood pepper. I mean, yeah, I mean, and then he says, eat with the mirror in front of you because you have the most dour face.
Oh
But
my
I
goodness.
think that's so spot on because we do communicate with so many other means than just words.
hmm I love in-person meetings and presentations, and very glad that we've come back to many of them, and so many people have appreciated the importance of either going into an office or going into an offsite, and more, and it depends on the line of work you're in, going in for a sales call and going in to have that conversation. And a lot of people have become more receptive because they love the energy that they get a chance to have when they have that conversation with someone that is, remember, trying to help someone else out. And
Yeah.
and going in with that connect your voice mentality is just a great Kickstarter, because when we understand there's much more into and I wrote about it in Speakeasy, the ways you need to be in every one of these conversations that you have. There's things that you can do to address what those things are and really do like deep work if you wanted to, because it is that presence that you need to bring to every conversation that is where that connection is made. And I say this very, you know, very lightly when I address this. We have a lot of conversations all the time, and we don't always connect with every conversation. There's lots of things that are fleeting and passing. And let's say we don't always make the sale. We don't always make the connection we need to do. But I argue that the reasons that we don't is because we're not stepping into the way we need to be in that conversation and increasing the likelihood that you will make a connection. You may not make the sale today, but you might be making a sale down the road when they're ready, and make many, many sales thereafter because of how you were and how you needed to be.
Thank you for saying that because I've always said, the merits of a good conversation is just that I've earned the right, the privilege, honor, and respect to be able to have another conversation with you. I may not make the sale, but if I can just, earn the right, privilege, honor, and respect.
I went down. This goes back a long time ago when I worked on Wall Street. I covered a lot of large institutional financial organizations, including many state treasuries. And there was one particular state, I'll leave the name out of it, where we had not done very well with them for many, many years. The previous coverage that used to deal with this state must have upset them in previous times, and we'd always wanted to do business with them. So I said, I'm going to go down and meet this person. And by the way, nobody had ever gone down to go meet this person. It was not one of the largest states. They just always did things remotely and on phone. And I made an appointment to go down there and proceeded in the very first 10 minutes to get yelled at for all the things that my predecessors had done before, all the wrong things they did, bad client management, improper information, maybe even being dishonest at times or untrustworthy, whatever it might have been. And I said, look, I can't unwind what happened before, but here's what I could start to do in the first and understand, what do you need to know to help you? And I did not ask for the sale. I did not ask to try and say, we're going to give you the best price wherever it is. I said, I'm going to do the best I can to help you. Now, I'll let you know that I did not make a sale with this particular person for over a year. She was quite bitter with our organization. But after that year, I made more sales with that person than any other institution had done over the next 5 years. And I always remembered the fact that, by the way, I still have great conversations with her. She gave me advice about my children when they were hitting certain milestones of age that I still use to this day, because we established a connection through the conversations. And in that relationship that we established, we started doing business together when it made sense, and we earned it. Because there's a lot of things where we have to earn trust. There's a lot, as we mentioned in the beginning, There's a lot of distractions out there, Mark, a lot of things that will keep us not focused on that person we're having the conversation with, the connection with. So once you understand and appreciate in that moment how valuable that is, the gold that's there when you do that. And that's the lesson that I try and help lots of sales organizations understand is push all the tactics, push all the techniques aside, all the tools, all the CRM tactics that will all help you do really great and keeping in contact. But I do want to work on the most important thing, and that's how you need to be in those conversations. And once you do that, you drive home.
Man, you've unpacked so much there, because again, another line I love to use is quit trying to close a sale and instead open a relationship.
Oh, I love that.
That's what you did with that lady. That's what you did.
Yeah.
And you think about it, you made that one trip down there, and you could have said, screw it, I'm out of here. But you stayed clearly you had more conversations.
Many. Numerous, and never pushing until I asked. And maybe the next part, which we also forget in our conversations, is asking permission to even have the conversation that you want to talk about. Ask permission. Is it all right if I share with you some of the things that my firm is doing, out there? Would you like to hear what we just did with someone else that could be applicable to you? Would you like to see something that I think could help you and your team down the road? I can't state it enough how when we come from a place of asking and listening, do we succeed versus that ugly place of talking and telling. Yeah. And if you were to make any distinction about the way you need to be, and one of the roots and the core ways you need to be is to be curious, which is asking and listening. Be freaking curious, Mark. Every time you have a conversation with someone, you're going to learn something. You're going to ask the right questions. You're going to get information that will make you a better salesperson, a better conversationalist, a better connector, because that's what you're doing. And pushing all that distractions aside and focus on making the connection. When you've established, I know how you be on the connection, what comes next? More conversations about how you can help them. More conversations on how you could do business with them. More sales from the conversations on how you could help them and do business with them.
I love what you said. And it all comes around that whole voice where you visualize, you think of the opportunity, you identify, you charisma and elevate energy. Man, that is so powerful. That's so key. Because I also think when you're in the zone, it's amazing how much better you listen.
Oh, that's a great, phenomenal point, Mark. I think a lot of people think they're in the zone and they need to be in the talking bit. Remember, it's a simple adage. Remember, we have 2 ears and 1 mouth. We should use them proportionally. You've heard that before. Never has that been more appropriate in the relationship as it is to the connections and conversations. And I'll change the math a little bit. We have 2 ears, 2 eyes, and 1 mouth. Those 2 ears and 2 eyes, that's 4 things that we can observe and take in, because we're listening with our eyes a lot of times. What's resonating? What's not? Something's up. There's a vibe and energy. And if you're really in it and you're connected to that person, you have a relationship with someone, when something's off. When it's not a good time to start talking about something else. And that's why you always ask permission. And when someone's not on their ability to able to listen in return or have the conversation with you, you are not going to make the connection. Figure out another time that works best for both of them when they're in a better spot. And I know there's pressure, those distractions I talked about from sales leaders and organization heads that need to make the sale yesterday. And you're the salesperson who are trying to make that sale. In this business of establishing relationships, you got to remember it's a marathon and not a sprint.
I love that. Hey, the book that you wrote, Speak Easy, right?
Yes.
Right there. Yeah. And how do people get in touch with you?
First of all, if you want to get a copy of the book, you can go to speakeasybook.com, or you can go to thriveloud.com, which is also Thrive Lou D. And Thrive Loud is also where you can find all my consulting, my business, and my podcast, the Thrive Loud podcast, which Mark Hunter's been a guest on.
Well, no, awesome. You've got a great podcast because you do 3 episodes a week. You crank out some incredible stuff. So I love that. Thrive Loud, which is Thrive Lou D. I love that. Yeah. Love that. You kind of play on your name the way I do with the Sales Hunter. So
not as well though. If I could, I would, but I can't.
Well, you could change your first name to Thrive.
I could, the Lou Diamond thing alone is challenging enough.
last name has not always been Hunter, but we'll save that for another story.
Oh,
No,
okay.
no.
Gotcha.
People ask me that.
You
I
changed
say
it when
no.
you got married, or?
Yeah. Anyway. Okay. We will leave people hanging on that one. Hey, with that, we got to say thank you for listening to Sales Logic. Wait a minute. That's the show I do with Meredith Elliott Powell.
And we love Meredith Elliott Powell.
We
She's
put the
awesome.
link down there.
Yeah.
Because you got to join us for that event. But I'm Mark Hunter, the Sales Hunter. This is the Sales Hunter podcast, 2 episodes a week. One, a short message from me where I just talk on a single topic, and a second one where we get leading experts like we've had here today, Lou Diamond, on the show in a in-depth interview. What's the Sales Hunter podcast all about? It's about giving you insights that you can run with and you can use right now. Lou, thank you for being on the show.
Thank you for having me. Truly a pleasure, my friend.
And with that, we'll see you on the next episode.